Alright, hey guys, how's it going? So I wanted to take a little time today to speak particularly to the AP World students, but to both classes if you guys have questions about the essay coming up. So I did a 16-minute long video the other day for my global students. I didn't do a video for the AP students, primarily because there's a lot of really good video content that's already out there that is made by other people, and I've shared those videos to you guys already. Um, but it seems that even with those helpful videos, there were a lot of people who had questions, particularly about the AP DBQ essay. So I wanted to take a little time to address a few of those questions, and um, I certainly encourage you guys to give me feedback or respond here as I'm talking about this, so you can let me know what's making sense, what's not, and anything I can clarify. I really want to do so as best as possible. So first of all, you may have seen that I extended the deadline for the organizer till tomorrow rather than tonight, because I'm trying to give people feedback and trying to answer a lot of questions. So I know people still do have questions, and I wanted to make sure you guys had an opportunity to clarify any misconceptions before you went ahead and started working on your organizers, or rather, I should say, finishing and submitting your organizers, because I want to make sure, as best as possible, as much as possible, that we can catch any mistakes or errors or major misconceptions before you guys start sitting down to actually write your essay, because I'd like that essay writing process to be, as valuable to you as possible, as productive for you as possible, not just in terms of getting a good grade, which is of course one concern, but really that I want you to make sure that you're learning from the experience of writing it. So I want to make sure that you do as well as you can on that essay. So some of the issues, I have a number of people who have been messaging me and asking me tons of questions. Um, so I wanted to bring up some of them. So getting a lot of questions about how do I cite the documents. So there was one question I know recently. There we go. How do we cite the documents? Along with how do we cite the documents, I've gotten questions about how to do happy analysis, and also how to use outside information. So I want to kind of think about this. If you want to look at your essay rubric, I highly recommend you do. And the rubric can be complicated. Sometimes it's confusing to think about how we should understand this essay. But I think a good way to understand it, to make it simpler, is, okay, you have 7 points on the rubric, right? Let's put the contextualization to the side. Let's put the thesis to the side. Hopefully after your intro you've already figured that out. Hey, let's even put the extra point for complexity to the side, for complex understanding. Let's just deal with the meat of the essay. Let's just deal with the substance of the essay itself. You have a thesis already, you're making an argument. How are you going to support that argument in the body of your essay? So you're kind of given three different types of evidence, three different types of tools, right? This is your toolbox that you can reach into to bring in examples of evidence. And when I say evidence, I don't necessarily mean quoting or citing. I just mean facts, examples, right? Details that you can use to back up the claim you're making in your thesis. Hey, how's it going? So, the three things that you have are, one, the documents, and by that I mean citing the documents, referencing the documents directly. So, directly pulling from the text of the document itself, the words within that box. That we'll call using the documents. All right? The second thing that you have, of course, is outside information. That is completely separate from the documents. So that's something that on the actual AP exam, during the essay, you would be getting from your own memory, from your own mind. So outside information can come in two forms, the way I talk about it. Little OI is small things that you add on to flesh out the details of the documents, to bring in a few little facts that are maybe related to the topic of the document but aren't mentioned, but can give the bigger picture. Big OI is the term that I use. and this is the more preferable one. If you can include it, I would say you should definitely include at least one, ideally two examples of big OI. Big OI is big outside information is outside information that could have been a document if if there could have been a document with this information. It just happens to not be any document like that, but it's enough information, it's separate enough, distinct enough from the other documents, and full enough of an example that it is equal to a document in the amount of information that it brings in the separateness that it has. So you have two things. You have bringing information directly from the documents, from the box, taking facts, taking understanding from the text of the document that's used in the documents. And then you have outside information, bringing things from not related to the document, or rather I should say not coming at all from the documents, just based on your own prior knowledge. And of course in this case you can look things up, you can brush up on your prior knowledge so that you have more things to pull from as a second piece of evidence to second type of evidence to include to support your argument. Hey, how's it going? Now the third type is the happy analysis. Now this was getting a lot of people confused. I would describe happy analysis as something between, hey man, I would describe happy analysis as something between directly referencing the documents and using outside information. Because happy analysis, it is based on the documents, but it's indirectly based on the documents. And so that's why we have HAPP, right? If you're looking at the document, you're not looking at just what does the text say and taking it on surface level, but you're digging a little deeper. You're being analytical. That's why it's called happy analysis, right? You're drawing inferences. You're possibly applying your outside information to help you draw more from the document. In other words, if you didn't know anything about this topic, you just read the document, you would just say, I don't know, I guess everything in this box is just what happened. But if you know a little bit more about what's going on at the time, if you know a little bit more about who is speaking, and they tell you who it is, that can help you unlock deeper levels of understanding of that document. So the HAPP stands for historical circumstances, right? What was going on at that time that helps us understand what else we can learn from this document besides just the text itself. So the time, the place, the events around it. A stands for audience. So who is this document speaking to? Who was it originally intended? Who was the originally intended audience? What other audiences could this be? So with this essay in particular, a really good example for the second part of that is the quote from the Buddha, right? He obviously had his initial original audience, his followers he was preaching to on the day that he talked about the Four Noble Truths, or the many times presumably that he spoke about the Four Noble Truths. But his audience of the Four Noble Truths is not limited simply to the people who were in front of him when he said it, but it's all the people throughout the ages who have heard and have had those teachings passed on, who have received them and learned from them and believed in them or rejected them. So, that's why we had talked about using that document to think about how people in China would respond to or would receive the message of Buddhism. That would not be citing a document, because there's nothing in the document about how people in China feel. The document only reviews the basics of Buddhist teaching, but by bringing in your understanding, by applying that document to the historical context, by thinking about who the audience might be in China, that's going to allow you to do some interpretation, do some analysis that would allow you to bring in additional conclusions than just the text of the document itself. So this is, again, happy analysis. The P's, there's two P's. One of them stands for perspective or point of view. So who is the person writing this? What type of person are they? The documents usually tell you who's speaking. They might give you a clue about their background, where they're from. In this case, there's mention of their employment, working for the government, or their philosophical perspective. That's going to help you interpret the document. If they say something good or bad about Buddhism, are they saying it because it's true, or are they saying it because they have a bias? Now, I want to be clear, this is not about just pointing out bias. That's not the purpose here. It's about using that to bring in new information. The other P is, I said point of view and purpose. So those are very closely related. But why is this person saying this? What was their intention behind saying this? Do they have a motive? Who are they speaking to, right? Audience and perspective and purpose kind of fit together. Um, who are they speaking to, and what are they trying to accomplish by what they're saying? What's their goal? So understanding, if you can figure out what the goal of the speaker is, what the purpose of the speaker is, they might not say in the text, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish with these words. But if you can figure that out, those are more facts. Those are more pieces of information that could be used to support your argument. Now, the why in happy analysis stands for, why is this relevant to your argument, right? So wherever you go with happy analysis, whatever things you draw out of the argument, it's not just for you to go, oh, look, I just realized that this is the audience, in case anybody finds that interesting, right? It's about saying, this is the audience, and now that I've pointed that out, here's how this is how recognizing who the audience is helps to further support my argument, okay? Another thing about happy analysis is some people are asking, do I have to do all HAPP in the same sitting, in the same example, or can I pick from them? Yeah, you can pick. You should not be trying. I mean, you're certainly welcome to if you find that it works. And there are definitely times where, the H, the A, the P, and the P sort of overlap with each other, right? But as long as you're doing one of those things at least, then that can be happy analysis. But you always have to do the why. If you just bring up an H, a P, or a P, but you don't explain how that connects back to your argument, how that supports it, then you're not going to really do the full thing, and you're probably not going to get credit for it. So that's happy analysis. So that would be indirectly bringing information from the document through interpretation, through analysis, rather than simply pulling information directly from the text. So you have those three different ways you can bring in information. Quoting, and anytime you quote from the document, you should not just leave the quote there. It's very important that you actually reword it in your own words. And because that can be repetitive, it's often recommended to not even quote the document at all, because that's not a requirement. It's certainly nice to quote the documents here and there, especially when there's a particular line that is meaningful, or the specific way it's worded is really significant and can help you with your argument. But if you're just trying to bring in that information, you could easily just put it in your own words and summarize it and be just as impactful, then that's probably the best way to do it. So you're including information from the documents, you're including directly, you're doing happy analysis where you are indirectly pulling from the documents through your analysis and interpretation, and then you're bringing in outside information. So another question that people have asked is it okay if one of my paragraphs is kind of light on direct pulling from the documents and it's very heavy on outside information? Yes, that's okay. It doesn't have to be that every single paragraph has an equal amount of each of those three types of evidence: documents, happy analysis, outside information. As long as it's there within the body paragraphs of your essay enough times, then that's fine. So it definitely is okay if there's an imbalance between your paragraphs in terms of the types of evidence you are using. Another question that I've been asked is, how do we cite the documents specifically? And that was the question I brought up at the beginning. When you cite the documents, you should be citing them. Somebody asked me yesterday, should I cite the documents as according to document 2, or should I just start quoting? And I said neither. Definitely not the second one. There are a few things in a DBQ essay more frustrating than a quote out of nowhere, right? Because obviously you know where the quote is from, and since I assigned you this essay, I do know where the quote is from. But you gotta imagine how that would come across to somebody who was reading this who had not already read over the documents. They would be completely confused and probably quite frustrated, because they'd be saying, what is this quote? Where did this come from? Who's talking here? I don't know what's going on in this essay. So it would be very very confusing and irritating, I think, for the reader. So you should definitely be citing your documents. But I would recommend not just putting document 1, document 4, because again, you want to write it in a way that the person reading it could understand everything without ever having looked over the documents beforehand, right? You should be writing this for someone who hasn't seen the documents. So when you introduce, and also because the number of the document doesn't tell you anything about who's speaking, you want to say, according to a Buddhist scholar from this year, and then give the quote. And you can say, according to a Buddhist scholar from such and such year, and then in parentheses you can say document 2, right? That way you're referencing the document number so that the grader, the person reading it, can keep track. But in terms of writing in a way that is nice to read, and also clear in terms of who's speaking, it's important that you do mention the author of the text, who it is, because it's in AP at least, it's almost always primary sources, so that really matters. And then you can go on with your quote. And as I said before, you don't have to quote. You do have to explain the specifics. You do have to put the document in your own words. So if you look, and I recommend that you do look at the rubric for the DBQ essay, there's a first point in terms of bringing direct information from the documents for including information from 3 documents, and that gives you only 1 point of the possible 2. But even that 1 point requires that you are putting the document in your own words. If you just drop a quote and then you never explain anything about it, then you will not be entitled to credit for even the lesser of the 2 points. To get the second point, you need to do 6 documents, again, pulling information directly from the document itself. And you need to make sure that you are showing how you supported your argument with that information from the document. So every time you put evidence, whether it's the document, whether it's your happy analysis, or whether it's outside information, it has to be followed up with this supports my argument because, or something maybe a little bit nicer than that, but if you can't think of any more creative way to say it, then just say it very simply. This goes back to supporting my argument because, and then explain why. Another important part of this is making sure, so we were talking about the rubric points. You have the 2 points for citing the documents. You have another point for happy analysis. You have to do that at least 3 times. And if you do not do it properly, you will not get credit. So if you do 3 of them, but one of them doesn't quite make it, you get no points at all. So I strongly encourage you to do to shoot for at least 4. And if you can do it all the time, then that's wonderful. That's kind of taking it to the next level besides just explaining what the document says. So try to do it for as many as you can. But again, every single one of them has to have the why. It has to explain why this goes back to your argument. And the same with outside information. You should put multiple examples of outside information. I would say at least 2 big OIs. If you're only putting 1 big OI, then you should put at least 2 small OIs in there, or little OIs. And this is, again, going to have to connect back to your argument. You're not going to just drop a random trivia information about Buddhism in China. You have to connect it back to your argument. Everything has to go to supporting your argument. And that is, so those are 4 points right there. 1 point for the document, 2nd point for the documents, 3rd point for happy analysis, and a 4th point for outside information. Beyond that, the other 3 points are all the same as your LEQ. So they're things we've already talked about. Contextualization, at least 3 sentences in the beginning of the essay. Make sure that it's thorough. Should be more than 3. It can be more than 3 if you can swing it. Thesis statement, building an argument. Try to use the XABY formula. It's okay. I did explain the happy analysis, and I'll put this up on the story so you can rewatch it. So yeah, thesis, try to use the XABY formula. It's okay, especially for a DBQ essay, to rearrange the letters. So in this one, I might do ABYX or ABXY in order to save the X for a different part of the essay, put it later in the essay. It's also okay for the X to not necessarily be a full counter argument where someone is completely disagreeing with everything you're saying, but it can be more of a qualifier that you put in where you're addressing not an entire opposite position, but a hole in your argument, or someone would say, well, isn't there an exception to the point you're making because this and this and that, and you notice those holes in your argument, and then you figure out how you can explain them away, how you can give an explanation for them, but still keep your main argument strong, and then work that into the thesis from the beginning, so that rather than trying to address criticisms at the end, you've already acknowledged them from the start, so it shows that you're more clear on your argument. You make it part of your overall point. And then the point for understanding, for complex understanding, that's connected to what we were just talking about with the thesis. That if you bring in those justifications for qualifiers, if you qualify your argument, if you make it more complex, if you consider different variables, then that can get you the point the same way that a full counter argument would. And in this case, maybe a counter argument in the strongest sense wouldn't be as relevant. But again, it really depends on the argument you decide to go with. I think that pretty much covers it. There were a couple of questions in here I'll answer real quick. If I resubmit the assignment to fix it, will it be counted as late? If you're talking about the initial organizer that was due the other day, no, I will not count that as late. Even if it says that it's late, I won't grade it as late. Do we start the organizer if you didn't give us feedback? You can, but I'm going to do my best to get you feedback as quickly as possible, and I would try to wait until tomorrow to see if I sent you feedback, so that you can incorporate it into your organizer. But definitely you can start working on it and start putting things together, and if you have questions about particular things, then reach out to me. If you feel confident, then you can continue on as things were and go from there. I think that's about it, guys. So I will let you go. Thank you for joining, and have a great night. Bye bye.